Hello everyone, George DeSantis here with a look at the market for the week ending February 8th, 2019. As usual, let's bring up a disclaimer. I urge you to read it. It simply informs you that I'm not a professional investment advisor, and therefore, if you need professional investment advice, seek it out with a qualified professional investment advisor. We'll begin by looking at the general market vis-a-vis the S&P, and we'll check the weekly chart and then the daily chart as usual. Here's a weekly chart of the S&P 500, and a couple of things stand out here. It seems as though all these moving averages are clustering near each other. For example, the 4 EMA, the 4 exponential moving average, is a yellow line. That crossed over the 9 EMA a couple of weeks ago. Now, it's poised to cross also above the 50 exponential moving average, 50 week really in this case, which is the magenta line, and the 30 weighted moving average is the green line. So all these moving averages are clustering there on top of each other. I think we can take a look at the daily chart in a little while, and we'll see that it appears that we hit the upper Bollinger Band on the daily chart, which is 2 standard deviations, but we'll get to that in a minute. In any case, we have a doji here as of last week, a candlestick described as a doji, the small body candle here. Since we had this bullish engulfing candle 2 weeks ago, the market still, to me, the preponderance of evidence leans toward the market apparently wanting to go higher. So I'm betting that this market is going to go higher, but let's take a look at some of the other indicators. The MACD histogram continued to trend up, and it's now above the zero line. So MACD histogram is in bullish territory. Williams percenile, I use a 30 period, is above the 50% line. And typically when it's above the 50% line, we are trending up. You could see that here from this period here in May all the way up to about October, which is when we started the decline. If we go down to the sum of the rate of change indicator, you can see we're sitting just at about the 4% line at 3.8. So we're poised to break above it, but not quite, not yet. Now on the weekly chart, RSI 12 is a very powerful trend indicator, and when it's above 40%, we are hardly likely to be in a bear market. You do not find this indicator above 40% in a bear market. So as far as the weekly chart of the S&P is concerned, we are still in an uptrend. Let's turn to the daily chart. Now on the daily chart, we get a slightly different picture. We still have the 4 EMA above the 9, 9 above 30, and the 30 above the 50. So we're still in an uptrend. But what happened in the past week is that we traded up for a while, and we hit the upper Bollinger Band, and then because that's 2 standard deviations away from the mean, and very unlikely to remain, and it's very unlikely to remain there, we pull back. And what do? We ended up in the buy zone between the 9 and the 30, the red line and the green line, and market closed above it. So I would anticipate the market going higher from here for a number of reasons, but this is one. The fact is that we fell into the buy zone and we closed above it, and we still have an uptrend according to the moving averages. We simply tested the upper Bollinger Band, pulled back into the buy zone, and now we look to be moving higher. MACD histogram, since it became bullish here back in January at the turn of the year, remains in bullish territory. Williams percentile remains above the 50% line, minus 50 to be exact, and the sum of the rate of change indicator remains above the 4% line. So both the weekly and the daily chart are both looking bullish to me anyway. Um, let's take a look at some other indicators relative to the S&P. We turn to the stockcharts.com charts that we often look at, and we can see here that the new high, new low index is still above some critical levels, the 200-day and the 50-day moving averages. So according to to this indicator, the new high, new low index, we're still in bullish territory. We're still trending up. Let's look at another stock chart. Here's another chart of the S&P, and the previous one was the new high, new low index. But the S&P, we rallied all the way up. We could see that on previous charts we looked at that we became overbought, hitting the 2%, the 2 standard deviation upper Bollinger Band. So we pulled back a bit into the buy zone between the 9 and the 30. So this is still looking pretty bullish here. Now we have blue bars, and as we mentioned before in previous videos, when there's a blue bar, we could go either long or short. We could either buy or sell. We're allowed to do either. This is a censoring indicator by Alex Elder, and we could either go long or short. At this point, because the moving averages are so situated, I would not go short here. If anything, you need to go long or hold your position. We looked at this indicator last week. This is the McClellan oscillator, and it became the market became overbought, and so the McClellan oscillator is pulling back a bit. Doesn't negate a whole lot of the other data that we looked at. Let's take a look at some individual stocks. On the Shaken Analytics software, they gave me permission to use it here. So these stocks, I have a list here that says stocks I own. I don't own all of them, of course. I own about a half a dozen. But let's take a look at as many of them as we can, or look at some of them that look quite interesting at this time, and you might want to put on a watch list. So let's start with AMAT, Applied Materials. Applied Materials broke above this long-term moving average. The money flow has changed character from negative to positive. It's a bit overbought right now, so you might want to wait to buy it until it becomes oversold, like in this area here. Now you see it's changed character here too, so we're getting relative strength above that zero line right now, and it's now considered very bullish. So that's an interesting one. Here's another one. CRCM, it's a care consumer stock. It's a healthcare stock, I believe, and it's very bullish. So the money flow came down a bit, but it's still quite positive. It's now oversold. Had a beautiful run up here since it was oversold here, and the relative strength is still very high, and it's very bullish. Salesforce, which I own, you can see that one is above that long-term moving average now. It's approximately a 200-day moving average, and we can see that it's now above that. Money flow is pretty strong. It was oversold right here, and it moved up. Now it's becoming a little more overbought, but the relative strength is strong, and it's considered bullish, right? Facebook, I bought Facebook back, and we can see Facebook broke above this long-term average. Money flow dropped a bit in the past few days, but it was oversold, and now it's becoming a little overbought. But you see, it's changed its personality, as the shaken people would say, from negative here to positive here, and it's considered bullish. The next one is FTNT, which is Fortinet software company. Is struggling to keep above the long-term moving average here, that approximately 200-day moving average, but it's closing above it, so it's now a bit overbought. But you can see the money flow is strong. It's stronger than it was here, and it's an interesting one to keep an eye on. All these other indicators are looking positive here too. SPY is an ETF of the S&P. So you can see that it's bumping up against that long-term moving average, and money flow has been stronger than it's been back here. So that's interesting. Institutions are investing in the S&P, stocks in the S&P. It was oversold. It's become a bit overbought, but it's now bullish. That's interesting. Here's Adobe. Adobe I own. And you can see that it's in a very strong trend and an industry, and it's neutral, but it's just closing above that long-term average now. And I like the way it's performing from here. It was oversold here and it ran up. It became overbought, pulled back a little, and now it's trending up again. So all of these indicators are looking quite interesting. It's neutral. It's not bearish. It's not bullish, but it's neutral. Another stock I used to own, but I don't own it right now, is IDXX. That is a veterinarian product manufacturer. And so it's still below the long-term moving average, but you see there's some interest here, some institutional buying. And now it's oversold. It didn't change character yet, or what they call the personality yet, but it looks like it may be attempting to do that real soon. If you like Microsoft, we could take a look at Microsoft. I don't own it, but Microsoft is still below the long-term moving average. It's now oversold. It's being bought up, and that personality hasn't quite changed back to positive yet. It's neutral insofar as the overall power gauge is concerned. And here's PayPal. I do own PayPal. You can see it was oversold here, rallied up, became a bit overbought, was oversold, still is, and it's attempting to rally again. Closed at its high on Friday. And you can see that these are the indicators. Money flow is strong, and its relative strength is pretty strong. It's neutral, so I like that one. I still have that. Here's another software company, Splunk, SPLK, is rated neutral on the power gauge, but you can see that it's making a new high. And it's one of those stocks listed by Investors Business Daily as a stock expected to increase their earnings by at least 50% over the next year or two. So it looks interesting. It was oversold and dropped, and then it started to rally a bit. You can see that it changed personality here. So I don't own it, but I like it. Here's Visa. Now, I've owned Visa for a long time, but I think I sold it somewhere in here. It's changed personality here, changed personality here. So it's now becoming a little more positive in terms of the money flow, a lot more positive, and it's still below that long-term moving average. So I don't own it, but if it continues to rally up and crosses above this, that would be one of the reasons why I would buy it again. But I like it in the long haul, for the long haul. That's Visa. Here's Alteryx, AYX. It's considered neutral in terms of power gauge rating. It had a nice day on Friday. It was up 3.27%. On the relative strength, it just issued a relative strength buy signal. You can see that what happened was that it became overbought, and then it's now oversold. So it actually took a nice move on Friday. I still own it. Here's Workday. As you know, I like this very much, making new highs above the long-term average. Bit overbought right now, but it was oversold at this area and it moved up. See, these oversold indications are very, very powerful. You can see that whenever stock is oversold, and this, like getting this indication here, it tends to move up, and the other indications are looking very strong. So I still own Workday. We're pretty much at the end of this. We allowed 15 minutes to do this, and so have a nice weekend. I hope you did. And we'll try and do this again next weekend, God willing.